like in the future. But before we go into this, let me first talk a little bit about our center and introduce myself. So if you don't know the Regional Center for Education Planning, we are a Category 2 UNESCO center that was established in 2003 under the auspices of the UNESCO and the UAE government. And our role in this region is to enhance education planning capacity nationally and regionally. And part of that is producing and disseminating knowledge about how to improve education in this region. And my name is Nora Ali Bakhsh. I'm the lead researcher here at RCEP, and I'm also the editor of this book that we have just launched. And I will be sharing the link of this book with all of you throughout this session and also at the end of this session because it's a really great book that I'm sure you'll be very excited to read after we finish this session. And so this session today is all about launching this book and hosting the writers of this book to engage in conversation about the future of education. And why is this book so important? It's because in today's world, everything is changing, but the one thing we know for sure is that the constant thing is change. And in the past few years, we've seen this. We've seen unprecedented health, economic, political, environmental challenges that force us to adapt really quickly to new situations. We saw this in 2019, for example, when 2020, when COVID happened. And tomorrow, we don't know what new challenges are going to face us. We know that the future is uncertain. So we must prepare for what it will bring us, even if we don't know what it is going to bring us. And whether that be keeping up with endless technological developments, ecological crises, another pandemic, or a more decentralized and globalized labor market that surpasses national borders, it really points us to this question of how does education today serve this changing world? How do we create students and new citizens in this world that are equipped to handle endless possibilities, to be adaptable, to be open to change, know how to work with change, know how to quickly work on their feet? So this book is all about this. And it's about giving voice to the education researchers that have been saying for a really long time that we need to move from traditional methods of thinking about learning as a means of gathering knowledge and content and moving more towards a model that emphasizes problem solving, flexibility, critical thinking, and understanding different cultural contexts very quickly. So, for example, we hear the term 21st century skills being referenced more and more to draw attention to the urgency of rethinking how do we educate our youth? How do we prepare them for this world that is constantly changing? So, for this publication, we invited education experts to reimagine what the education system needs to look like for us to be future ready. And we asked the question in each chapter, we ask, what will the teachers of the future be like? What are the students of the future going to be like? What are the profiles of these characters? Because they're going to change so much as education changes. What are the new technologies and tools that are used in today's classrooms? Because we've moved away from a model of textbooks and notebooks. There are new tools now. How will students be evaluated? How will be they assessed and graded in the future? How are we going to think about AI in education settings? How do we benefit from this tool as well as deal with the challenges it prevents to us? And how do we keep students engaged when all of these new technological advancements are happening? How do we make sure that they actually pay attention? Do we need to use things like gamification? And most importantly, what are we doing this all for? We are preparing these future students for a future job market that we don't know anything about yet and that is constantly changing. So this is the situation we're dealing with today, and this is what our book is about. And before we proceed, I would like to first introduce Ms. Mahra, who is the director of RCEP, and also she supervised the book coming to fruition. So thank you very much, Ms. Mahra, and please, you have the floor.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السادة المشاركين الخبراء
Peace be upon you, our guests and let's say our experts and even from the center here. I'm very happy to welcome you all in this seminar, and it's called the series of 90 minutes that gathering the experts and the thinkers and the researchers from across the world to celebrate this new kind of a book from the center. The first time to what's called about the futuristic insights on education components. It's not only as a stage to launch the book, but also a stage for communication and discussing, and also to enrich the idea that sharing the education knowledge is not only the goal, but it's a tool to change, to make the change, and also changing the education policies for more an inclusive future. Distinguished attendees, this research is coming in an unprecedented time in changes in education and the tools used in technologies that can interact and then working together with the human intelligence and AI intelligence to take all the activities and the things will be integrated. So that's why we're here in the center. We need to contribute in this, enriching this dialogue and open the insights for the future education and know what is happening in the future in the world and in the Arab world also. This book launched today is efforts done by team with from experts, academia, and also from the practitioners worldwide who are joined together to have this product on this book. And so the education is not a local issues, but it's a human message for the all that can integrate between the IDK, innovation, creative, and even the prosperity. And this is not only to sharing the idea, but also how to make the changes and to make it possible, and also discussing ideas and to education challenges in and the future based on the students' assessment and even the role played by teachers, instructors for comprehensive knowledge and having how to build educational systems, flexible ones that can cope with the futures and be futuristic. Ladies and gentlemen, UAE have laid an deep intention for the human being and to be focused by the education, because this is the main stone for the public and for the population. And that's why we are focusing more on innovating more in the education and building partnerships between UAE and UNESCO to upskilling the education planners. And based on that, this product or this book is only one step in our mission to enhance the knowledge and to spread the message from the center, and also share the knowledge between the countries to enhance the national education plans. This book has been established based on openness for the future insights, and also because this is the education is the best solution. Based on that, this issue was focusing more on the fourth target of the sustainable goals, which is about enhancing the opportunities for education lifelong. And this is not only by slogans, but also based on policies and idea data. So the book analyzes the trends globally and discover the areas to enhance and also to extract ideas and make provisions in the future for the world and even the Arab region. Ladies and gentlemen, this book is reflecting the quantum leap in the efforts in the education in the future. And these, education is a vital process, not only at schools and universities, but also in the community and the family. So based on the self-learning and even enhancing the cope with the community. Ladies and gentlemen, and talking about the future in education, it's not only an idea, but became a strategic need, and each country building their citizens and that. So the world is living a new a new season or a new era of the education. So because even jobs, it's related to a certain criteria based on this ever changing world. We need to have some efforts like advancing technologies in education, and also the tools you must be used, and even community and economic changes and transformation, and also about the cultural diversity and even openness to the globalization, which is needed to build the human being and even nationalities, and also or national identity. And here we need to build something based on the communities, which may be put a burden on our academia to focus more on sustainability and the future of the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, what we can see from the ideas from this and paper, we can see its impact on education, how the education still human centric in education, and how we build based on the AI, and what the role by the teachers within the AI era. And here we have what's called the role played by the center to focus with its resources and the projects and initiatives to have tools and methodologies and seminars to have this kind of the planning, strategic planning and smart planning for the education based on data and proofs, not only expectations. One of the center achievements last years, we have what's called to link between the practice and the research, and what is regional, what is national, and what is international, to be a bridge of knowledge between the Arab countries for the educational planning and thinking. Today, we are launching the first product, and to make sure the knowledge is our message, and even we have projects, training projects, and even knowledge, and even everything is good there to help to even support that we are cope with everything and the changes, and also be sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me by this occasion to thank all the researchers and even authors, co-authors in this book, who have enriched the content with their experiences and field experiments, and even from the universities or entities worldwide. I have collected from Asia, Europe, Arab world, and to join together here and to have this product, and with a deep believe that the human will be the centric of education and will be the one of the tools of knowledge. This product is not the end of the story, but it's a start of a new phase of the knowledge production here in the center, and to collaborate and expand. We have to discuss issues related to education in the Gulf and even the Arab world, to have this education policies in the future. And we are celebrating today to launch this product, and also a message to all the centers that the future is not only waiting to the future, but we need to build it. And because the schools are believing in innovation, education, and the teacher believes in the message, and even the students are ready to change. Ladies and gentlemen, by end of my speech, I would like to think about this is not only to think about the future, also to act based on that. And action is a hope to be built, and which we can see it on the ground, and based on the knowledge and the planning and the center. And these products only and express and our belief in that the knowledge can build the future if we manage to guide it in the proper way. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for contributions, and thank you for the all authors and co-authors who helped us to have this product, and wish all from you from God to help us to have more involving education and more future insights and future brightness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mahra, for this lovely introduction. And next, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. John Moravec, who also contributed a chapter to this book about labor markets of the future and the connection between education and labor. So to briefly introduce Dr. John Moravec, he's an education futurist exploring creativity, adaptability, and innovation in education. He is well known for the nomad concept, which he coined, which envisions a learner-centric and dynamic world. And through global research, collaboration, and technical assistance with organizations like the World Bank, he advances transformative ideas to reshape education for an era of rapid change. Dr. John is going to talk for 15 minutes, and then we're going to have 5 minutes for questions. So please, if you would like to ask him a question, use our Q&A button on Zoom to submit your question, and we will be having 5 minutes to read those, and Dr. John can answer them. Thank you so much, and Dr. John, you have the floor.
Hey, thanks so much. So, hi everybody, and thanks again to our host for the invitation to be part of this important discussion. I'm honored to be here. It's 5 a.m. in Minneapolis, so I'm wearing my glasses to cover the bags under my eyes, but it is really, it's really a joy to be here. Um, so my work over the past 2 decades is really centered on the futures of learning, innovation, and human development. And I've been really lucky to collaborate with so many ministries of education, universities, international organizations, and now RCEP, right? On projects that just don't really explore how education can anticipate, but really how we go beyond just reaction to change. And I think this really reflects the director's notes here. So for my early research on nomads, uh, that's KNOWMADS. These are knowledge nomads or creative, adaptable knowledge workers towards more recent work with education futures and development organizations. I've really tried to understand how people learn, how people work, and how we create new meaning in a world where the boundaries between the classroom, community, and our careers are perhaps dissolving a little bit. So these experiences have taken me quite a bit around the world, from Latin America to Eastern Europe, across Asia, and we've really been engaging conversations about how about transformation, right? That must be both systemic and human-centered, as was mentioned before by Maura. So, I think we found that real change happens when learners and educators see themselves as agents of the future, not products of the past. And the agency is something that's very powerful because it means enabling people to bring to the world what they dream of bringing into the world. So I'll just begin with a simple observation. The future of work is already here, but the future of education hasn't really been realized by anybody. And I think that across every region, we see the nature of work changing faster than our education systems can really adapt. We see this in my home, United States, the UAE, across GCC states, and across the world. We've got automation, artificial intelligence, global digital networks. These have all transformed how we create value, how we communicate, and how we collaborate. But our schools and universities really still reflect the industrial age, right? They prepare people for stable, highly predictable professions in a world that no longer exists. So the gap between how we learn and how we live has become one of the greatest challenges of public policy. So to close it, we must reconnect the classroom with the dynamics of work, citizenship, and human potential. So I've been asked to frame this around 8 talking points. So I've got some notes here that's going to help guide my talking points. And the first one is why change is urgent. And I think it's obvious to everybody, but let's consider the scale of the task, right? So UNESCO released a report in 2021 called Reimagining Our Futures Together. And it called for a new social contract for education, one that's built on cooperation, inclusion, and sustainability. And this reminds us that education systems must not only transmit knowledge, but really empower learners to shape the future of society itself. And since that report, only 4 years ago, a lot has happened, right? When that report was written, like COVID was just starting to hit, and then we got hit by AI. And today's transformations in throughout all social economic markets make that message even more urgent, right? In the industrial paradigm, education prepared individuals to perform very well-defined tasks within hierarchies. But now, as Peter Drucker anticipated in his idea of the knowledge society, work depends increasingly on creativity, having sound judgment, and being able to generate new ideas. And I like to extend a little bit further by taking your ideas to create new value. Because automation isn't just limited to factories anymore. We're seeing intelligent machines write text, analyze legal documents. They're making medical recommendations. The World Economic Forum's 2023 Future of Jobs report estimated by 2027, right? Just 2 years from now, nearly half of job skills will change. Not saying jobs, those are changing, obviously, but job skills that are necessary. So if education continues to focus on this sort of like this road to industrial learning and credential accumulation. We're not risking just unemployment, but pure irrelevance for generations of young people going through our education programs. So this isn't really something that we should really frame purely through economics, right? It's civic, it's ethical. It's how we think about our communities. It's about how we think how we can serve our communities. And so we have to equip people to remain fully human in the age of tech, in the age of technologies. They're getting much more intelligent. Now, the second point, let's talk about is the limitations of our current systems, right? So most education systems still operate on these old assumptions from the factory and the old corporate office. We've got standardization, we've got uniform pacing, and we have a belief that knowledge can be compartmentalized, right? We can compartmentalize what's in your head. And these are really legacies of 19th century, 17th century schooling, even that once made sense, right? It delivered basic literacy and numeracy at scale, it was replicable. But now the world has just become so much more complex and awash in constant change that these old approaches really hinder creativity and adaptability. So previous research that was compiled by the OECD show that heavy reliance on standardized testing narrows a curriculum and suppresses deeper learning, right? That by that it means that students learn to pass exams rather than learning to think critically, and teachers under pressure to produce measurable outcomes have little freedom to innovate, right? And this results in education systems that really reward compliance over curiosity or prediction over imagination. So when success is defined by performance on a test, we risk producing graduates who know what the answers are, but not how to ask them or how to solve the next problems. And so we really need to recognize that learning remains highly segmented by discipline. Yet the challenges that define this century, we've got climate change, AI, sustainability, governance issues, social equity. And these are all interdisciplinary by nature. This really forces us to think, well beyond the box. Now, there's a economist, David Deming, uh, who maybe 8 years ago he wrote that jobs are the fastest growing that require both technical and social skills, right? So it's not just about no not having the technical skills to do stuff, but it's having the social skills to grow within an organization and to create new value. Now, the third point is on the defining futures of future job markets, right? Future job labor markets will be increasingly post-disciplinary, far more digital than they are today even, and deeply interconnected, right? We've got routine tasks rather than if they're manual or cognitive, will continue to be automated. At the same time, we're going to see entirely new forms of work emerge. We've got emerging data ethicists, right? We've got people who are employed to train AIs. We've got human machine interaction designers, planetary systems analysts that are able to work with these mass amounts of data. And so this requires technical knowledge, obviously, and systems thinking, but also ethical reasoning and creative synthesis. And going back to the World Economic Forum's work, they've predicted that creativity, analytical thinking, and technological literacy will be the most valued skills by employers. And work is also becoming much more fluid, right? So it used to be that you get a job and you could expect to work in that job, maybe progressing through different roles throughout your lifetime. Now people are navigating multiple careers over a lifetime, often in hybrid physical, digital environments, right? So success is depending less on static credentials that prepares for the sort of static job world, but more on the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn continuously. So the landscape of work is transforming rapidly from so what degree do you hold? Where's your degree from? And turning into so what can you learn what can you learn next? And what new value can you bring into our organization? There's a book written by Joseph Allen called Robot Proof, and he said that we must design education that complements instead of competing with machine intelligence, focusing on creativity, critical thinking, and lifelong learning. By that, it just means that these things are not going away. The fourth point is really centered on the human qualities that matter the most. So in this shifting landscape, human qualities become the true competitive advantage that we have, right? So we're talking about as a species, what sort of competitive advantage do we have now? Technical expertise can be automated or outsourced, but things like human imagination, empathy, moral reasoning can't. And these are, part of these so-called soft skills that we're referring to before, but I also like to call these the nomad skills, right? These are the capacities that allow individuals to thrive in uncertain, complex environments. So they include curiosity and lifelong learning, adaptability and resilience, initiative and entrepreneurship, critical thinking and creativity, intercultural understanding, and emotional intelligence, right? And these things are all very difficult things to teach. Who's had a, I mean, very few people have had courses on any of these things, like how to think, or a course on the future. And this really requires, I think, very much a rethink in at least the content that we produce within our schools. And as I said earlier, so a nomad is someone who can work with almost anybody, anytime, and anywhere. They carry personal knowledge that is rich, it's flexible, evolves continuously. They integrate explicit knowledge, which can be taught and codified with tacit knowledge, and that arises from experience and reflection. And that's a distinction that Nonaka and Takeuchi made, I think, quite clear in their work on knowledge creation. Because nomads combine both tacit and explicit knowledge, they can adapt quickly to new challenges, right? Because they're able to work within context. And they're the people who innovate when systems fail and who keep learning when technology changes the rules, which is happening at an increasing pace. So making the most of these capabilities means shifting from education as instruction to education as formation, right? Developing the whole person as a thinker, a collaborator, and as an ethical actor. Now, the fifth point is that the nomad paradigm challenges us to rethink what it means to be educated, right? So nomads are post-disciplinary workers who combine technical literacy with creativity, social insight, right? They're out there to create new value. And that lies not just what they know at any given time, but how they apply their personal knowledge to solve new problems. So this is really defined by three attributes, right? So we've got personal knowledge mastery, which is a practice of integrating insights from multiple learning experiences, both formal and informal. We've got knowledge mobility, which is the ability to transfer understanding across settings, sectors, and cultures. And then we've got strategic knowledge application, which is using learning with clear intent to achieve meaningful outcomes. So the nomad's mindset is lifelong, it's reflective, and it's oriented towards contributions. And some people have noted that it seems to flip Maslow's hierarchy of needs upside down, really focusing on self-actualization first and foremost. And of course, there's Ken Robinson. In his book, Creative Schools, he reminds us, that real learning happens when curiosity is ignited, but not when compliance is forced upon us, right? And nomads really embody this principle. They see learning as a process of discovery instead of delivery. And so educating for nomadism is therefore a project for supporting humanity, right? And it invites us to develop young people who can only survive disruption, but shape it towards humane and sustainable goals and ends. All right, point six on the list. Examples of the shift is already happening. So around the world, we see education systems starting to reflect these ideas. I think Finland offers one of the strongest models. It has a phenomenon-based learning frameworks that allows students to study real-world challenges like urban design or climate adaptation. And these are done through interdisciplinary projects. So in these, teachers act more as facilitators that guide inquiry, right? Singapore has a Skills Future program that provides every citizen with resources and incentives to pursue learning throughout life. And that's a huge policy shift on their side, right? that education no longer is a phase of being a young person, but a permanent feature of citizenship. India, the Atal Innovation Mission encourages experimentation and entrepreneurship through tinkering labs, where students design and prototype solutions to local challenges with mentorship that's done locally. And Bhutan, education aligns with the national philosophy of gross national happiness, which I think I first heard about like 20 years ago. It's been going on for a while. And the curriculum integrates academic learning with well-being, ethics, social responsibility, really reminding us that education must serve both the human and ecological balance. And at smaller levels, we've actually had a Nomads Business School in the Netherlands for about a decade. And there's a KS pilot school in Denmark, and that shows how formal and non-formal education can merge within higher education settings. And so students there design their own projects, launching social enterprises, leading cultural initiatives, or collaborating in community innovation. So learning becomes reflective, networked, experiential. And each of these examples demonstrates that when students are trusted as creators of knowledge, they develop the autonomy and adaptability our societies need. So the seventh point, and going pretty quick here, what can we do as educators and policymakers? We need action at both policy and practice levels. So at the macro level, that's I think for each of us individually, we have to reform curricula, which is like moving from content delivery to competency-based designs that really integrate digital literacy, creativity, collaboration. Curriculum should emphasize not what to learn, but probably more like learning how to learn. And invest in teacher professional development. Linda Darling Hammond and her colleagues built a huge body of research on this that shows that continuous learning and collaborative learning for teachers produces, marked gains in student achievement. And integrating technology wisely is another one. Rather than fighting an AI, let's integrate it and adapt with it. But find ways to also do it that's more transparent and equitable. And then, of course, find ways to align policy initiatives. At the micro level, I think we need to think of how we can grant schools greater autonomy to design locally relevant project-based curricula. So bottom-up innovation often succeeds where top-down mandates fail. And we need to look at forging partnerships among schools, NGOs, and industries to create authentic learning experiences connected to real-world problems. We can't isolate schools by themselves anymore. And really work at embedding more social and emotional learning. That empathy, self-regulation, collaboration correlates strongly with academic success and employability. Research has been pretty clear on that, and we need to address that and integrate within schools. And then we have to rethink assessment, of course. We have to replace these one-off, high-stakes exams and portfolios with portfolios and prototypes and reflective documentation that captures how students think and create. And this really requires a lot of courage and coordination. It's not rejection of rigor, but really just a redefinition of rigor, moving from sort of masterization towards mastery, from repetition to originality, to really asking and enabling the question, so what do you want to bring into the world? And I'll wrap up real quick here. The eighth point is that we just need bold action to carry a bold vision forward. And I think that if there's just one message I want to leave with you, it's this. Education must evolve from preparing people for the future of work to empowering them to create it, right? I think our goal isn't to train individuals to fit into existing systems, but to equip them to redesign those systems when they no longer serve society. And that means rewarding curiosity instead of conformity, exploration instead of efficiency, maybe, adaptability instead of compliance. I think it means building learning ecosystems that span formal, non-formal, informal, and digital spaces where people can really pursue meaning, their own meaning, and creativity and collaboration across their lives. And I think that when we educate people as nomads, we support more than ourselves as individuals, that we really strengthen our societies and our capacity for empathy and for a collective imagination to build better futures. And the classroom career connection isn't just a pipeline from study to employment, then it becomes a continuum where we're always learning and we're working together, participating civically together to inform each other and learn from each other. I mean, we learn a future now where everyone is a learner, or we all need to be a learner. And at the same time, everybody has something to teach. So when I wrote this chapter draft a year ago, artificial intelligence was just beginning to move from the margins of curiosity in the education policy, and now it's moving to the mainstream, right? We're watching the rapid normalization of AI in classrooms. We see it from automated assessment to generative learning design, and entire institutions are experimenting with AI tutors, adaptive curricula, and synthetic teachers. And this really, I think, really reinforces my message because they show that we need to develop these new sets of life skills to survive in this new world that are aligned with the nomad paradigm. As technologies grow more capable, our distinct human advantage will rest on abilities that cannot be programmed. And, again, that's critical thinking, it's ethical judgment, imagination, emotional intelligence. And the jobs of the future are simply those that machines can't do. But what we've also learned is that technology alone can't close the gap between classrooms and careers. And if anything, it's just exposed deeper divides between those who can use AI critically and those who are used by it, right? Between schools with the resources to innovate and those still struggling to connect to the internet. So the future of education cannot be outsourced to algorithms. If that happens, then we become the algorithm. Or Douglas Rushkoff is a book title called Program or Be Programmed, right? I think we've got some deliberate choices about how we use technology to expand instead of limiting human agency. And for those of us who are policy leaders or advisors, this is really a tough job. And we're learning from the ground up, right? Across regions, educators are forming communities of practice around project-based learning, social emotional learning, global citizenship. We see this in professional associations as well as networks of schools like the European Democratic Education Community. And policymakers are being pushed to think differently. Even I'm experimenting with asking some questions. Like I asked, so what if we gamified cheating with AI in schools? And I'll share a link to an app we made about that in the chat with you to try out. But big and small, these are just promising steps, but they're really fragmented. We're all trying different things in different directions with different intent, except we're trying to keep afloat in this new sea of change. And the next phase of transformation must connect these initiatives into coherent systems that reward creativity, collaboration, and contribution as much as they do compliance, at least. And that's our job. And so this transformation is not going to be easy, right? We have to rethink control. We need educators who are willing to experiment, and we need communities that are willing to trust learners as co-creators of knowledge. But the alternative, really, which is continuing as if the world has not changed, creates far more risk for us. And we possess the research, the examples, and the technology to lead us forward. But what we really need is this will to act. We need to align policy, pedagogy, and purpose to build education systems to help shape our futures towards inclusion, sustainability, and just actualizing human potential. So the future of work is unfolding now, and let's just make sure the future of education doesn't just keep pace of things, but leads with courage, some compassion, and imagination. So thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moravec. And I love that you brought up Douglas Rushkoff. Is really one of my favorites. And I like his work so much, and I really recommend everyone checks him out. I'm putting the link to the book in the question and answer. Unfortunately, we don't have chat enabled on this Zoom, but I think also some of the questions we got you already answered during your talk, but I did get a question that was submitted privately to me, which is I think very relevant to your talk. The other side of the equation, which is employers. How do you think employers can look out for these digital nomads? Because right now, even hiring is a very formulaic process, right? Like there's the interview, maybe an assignment. I think even employers, they're kind of afraid to go out of the bounds to even job specifications. They want someone like super specific. What is your advice for employers to be on the lookout for these people that, might not exactly match the job description, but are flexible, are adaptive, are willing to learn, and are, have the ethos of what you call the nomad.
Right. No, I think it's a good question. And I think that we are seeing what economists would phrase as some sort of friction in here, because I think that employers just simply don't know what to do at the moment.
Mm.
And I think that as a consequence, we're seeing so many new people being interviewed online, having AI systems judge the responses, etc., because they're having a hard time matching people with the skills and stuff, and also kind of interpreting this. That's, of course, not the right way to do things. So for employers, I think what they really need to look at, and this is within their organization as well as outside, right? So nomads aren't necessarily something that we need to have specific training for, but I think that we have so many nomads among us, right? You
Mm.
think of it an organization, and you think about like a network map, oftentimes they like to plot themselves as very neat little hierarchies, the president, the vice presidents, the directors, da, 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 all the way down. But if you look at how they actually work, it looks like a plate of spaghetti, right?
Mm.
And the nomads in the plate of spaghetti are like the meatballs, right? They're making the connections between all these different nodes. Because while they may be working in one area, though, their knowledge and what they can do can also apply to different areas and create new values. So I think that one thing that human resource departments can do and managers can do is to really look for the meatballs within their own organizations. But also to really change their hiring practices. So we're not so keen on finding people who can do a specific task, because if you have a task that's on a long list of do this, chances are that could be automated by a
Mm.
machine. The shorter job descriptions have the most creativity in them. And to really find those people, we need to really start interviewing and asking people, so what new value can you create, right? What can you bring in? Because I think that for all of us, we may not have the specific knowledge to be able to take on future jobs, but at least we should have the skills to survive the job interview, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we have also one more question from the audience. Someone asked, do you think that if we're promoting students to use AI and machine learning, that this might adversely affect their critical thinking skills? And how do we balance that against new technology? I know it's a long question, but I think we'd like to hear your take on it.
My take is that this isn't a new question. We had this conversation a couple hundred years ago when textbooks were introduced. We had the conversation, I mean, in the United States, we had teachers going on strike, holding picket signs about calculators in the classroom,
Hmm.
right? And then there's like turn to what are we gonna do about cell phones and tablets and stuff. And so now the new technology that we're concerned about is obviously AI. I'm not saying that we should dismiss it, but I think that people will find creative ways to use it and find ways to think critically with it. I think the biggest problem we have in education is that we're using these new tools to replicate what we've always been doing, rather than thinking critically ourselves as education leaders to find new uses for it and new approaches, which I think requires a lot of critical thinking and new uses on the on the top end, right? So when I talk about agency for students to be able to use these tools, I also mean that teachers need this agency as well, and school leaders to really create solutions and outcomes that are much more meaningful to them. So that's my perspective.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I think you definitely have a point that every time there's a new technology, I remember reading somewhere like even when they invented telephones, people thought, it's magic and it's something evil and they didn't understand it. So with every new technological upgrade we have as a society, no doubt it's going to cause anxiety, it's going to cause fear and panic. And every time as humanity, we've managed to find a new relationship with that thing where we can use it in a balanced way. And I see your point that AI is no different. Like we'll find our way to engage with this productively. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Moravec. We're going to be moving on now to our first panel of the session. Um, this the first panel is called EdTech Revolution: Opportunities and Challenges in Future Classrooms. And for this panel, we're going to have Balqees and we're going to have Dr. Grassini. Both of these are writers who have contributed to our book, which, by the way, I'm posting the link to the book in the Q&A. So please do check that out as one of the answers to the questions, and I'm gonna keep doing that. So yeah, it's just gonna be you two on the panel today, Dr. Grassini and Balqees. So please join me, unmute yourselves, and we can start this conversation.
Okay, thank you very much for introducing us. I can say something about it. Well,
Yes.
I agree with what has been said by our keynote. I think that one problem that we had is that education has been a very conservative kind of field. So compared to other fields, education is usually quite resistant against novelty and new methods and new things. Sometimes I have the impression when we talk about AI that educators and us at the university, for example, we always move with several months, if not years, delay. So we're developing guidelines, we're developing rules, we're developing like a way to use tools that are in fact already surpassed by technology and about how people actually use these tools in practice.
Yeah.
So this is something I wanted to add. This is mostly like a pitch that I could make for stimulating maybe the session. That how can we be quicker? What can we do for changing this in education sector?
And I just want, before you start, Dr. Simone, I want to just tell the audience a little bit about you. So Dr. Simone contributed a chapter to our book, which was all about AI and XR in education and how these new tools are being used in very creative ways. And Balqees contributed a chapter to the book that was about educators and how they can integrate AI while still maintaining a human connection and empathy in the classroom. So for this segment, we want to talk about EdTech and how this technology is reshaping classrooms today. So for you, Dr. Grassini, I actually had a specific question, which is, I want you to share with the audience an example where AI or XR has already enhanced learning outcomes in a meaningful way. I think it would be really great for the audience to have a specific picture, a specific scenario. Dr. Simone?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to give some space to the audience. I think when we talk about educators, for example, we talk about us, that we prepare lectures and we teach. AI has actually been quite useful for us because us being streamlined quite a lot of our work when you talk about if it's preparing slides or if it's like writing a email to students. So I mean, we have use cases of AI, but what I'm still liking to see, at least in the university, is how can we use AI together with students. So I mean, how can we teach them how to use AI? I'm actually performing some research at the moment to understand what one thing that we are kind of lacking, for example, one knowledge that we are lacking at the moment is like what do the student perceive as to be a way that is ethically allowed to use AI? Because we are creating guidelines ourselves, but we often crash against the reality that student may perceive a correct way to use AI or ethical way to use AI that is not the same. That is, it doesn't conform to what is our thinking. So I think we should understand more what is the way that they perceive as a correct way to use the technology. And we should also kind of understand what is their point of view. That is something that we don't have it right now. And what is still lacking, as I said, in the university is that student and teacher, they use, of course, AI independently. According with some research that I performed earlier, students seems to be driven by performance expectancy. So they will use AI as far as they believe that improve their performance in a specific task. However, they are little of no, but little for sure. They use moderate by, for example, what they whether or not they perceive is ethical to use it, or whether or not they perceive they need help to use it, etc. Of course, it depends from student demographic, etc. But it seems that it's quite different from us. That first we look for regulation, and we are more concerned with privacy, for example, in the teacher, and then we are maybe less concerned by performance expectancy. That is like what student. So what I wonder is like, how can we make students more considering guidelines and what we believe is the correct way to use the technology in the study place? Of course, if we can continue this speculation about these nomads and how can we instruct them to be critical thinker, then this is a step further. It's is understanding not just how to regulate or indicate how to use the technology, but how to, together with the student, use the technology for developing certain critical skills that they are actually probably not what has been the focus for educational in the last century or so. And it was more like imparting notions and making them learn some notion that they could use. Nowadays, this old system for which we teach them how to, what are the notions they need, it may be outdated because every notion can be retrieved. So what is more important is probably us to learn them which notion are needed and not which notion are the ones that they have to learn. That is kind of a different thing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grassini. And I want to just quickly ask Balqees and Dr. Zaffar, thank you for joining us. Dr. Zaffar also contributed a chapter to this book, which was all about gamification. So I'm going to also ask you a question, Dr. Zaffar. But Balqees, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the most important thing for teachers, like in training those teachers? How do we ensure that they integrate AI but still maintain that human connection and empathy in the classroom? What do we need to keep in mind when training teachers?
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon all. Happy to be here. To answer your question, I think to get there, we need to rethink the whole process of teacher education we are having now. And from my personal perspective, I see three areas that must evolve together. And when I say teacher training, I'm referring to the pre-service teacher. That's what I have in mind, but that's one element that we should focus on, and also teacher on service. So we need to build AI literacy with an ethical lens. And by saying that, I don't see teachers that they need to become programmers, but they should understand how AI make decisions. So they should understand where the bias appear and what responsible use of an AI should look like. Like I have a tool, which is an AI-based tool. And when I'm using AI, I'm referring to the Gen AI, like ChatGPT, for example. So who builds it? What data does it use? And when should I trust it? When should I step in? And to reach that level of AI literacy, this should be explicitly implemented in any teacher program. So we can start by introducing like AI-based competency. We can start with the global one designed by where it is an element of the teacher training program. So when they graduate, they have a full picture, a holistic understanding of the ethical use of AI. And regarding human connection, I definitely see it must remain at the heart of teacher preparation. So if AI is taking the routine task, then we should emphasize what the AI cannot do. So we should focus on the emotional, ethical presence, and they should be emphasized on the teacher training. So like if AI can do what can speed up my lesson plan preparation, I should spend more effective time with personalized learning. I attend to the students in the classroom. I use empathy with the students. So that's what the focus on: emotional intelligence and empathy.
Yeah.
And another, which is the last point, I think we should see teachers as also co-designers of AI-based tools, that we shouldn't give it to them at the end. During the teacher training, the pre-service teachers can join, have kind of a collaboration with the industry, design this tool for educational purposes. Teachers should design the input, because eventually they are the implementers. And if you want me to use AI effectively with my students, then you should consider from the design phase, not toward the end. So this should also be considered during teacher training. So that's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Balqees. And I think this also answers some of the audience questions about how do we balance AI as a new tool and how to work with it critically. So thank you so much for this. This is so important. And also, I really love what you said about the human connection. I mean, just personally, I know that there's been obviously 2 or 3 teachers in my life that have just completely changed my life. And I don't think that any anything can replace this, when a teacher looks at you, when they see your potential before you even do, when they encourage you, when they push you, there's nothing like that. So thank you so much. What you spoke about is so important. And yeah, your chapter is something that is going to be super needed as we advance in these technologies and in the education setting. Thank you so much. And I have a question for Dr. Zaffar. And then maybe I have a question for all 3 of you, whoever wants to contribute to that question. But for Dr. Zaffar, I was particularly interested of what did you find about gamification's potential to keep students motivated long term? What do you think about that?
Thank you for that very important question. From the research perspective, and from the growing body of evidence in the field, it's clear that gamification holds a significant potential to sustain students' motivation over the long term, particularly when it's designed around an intrinsic drivers rather than superficial rewards. Short-term engagements often comes from points, badges, and leaderboards, but long-term motivation emerges when gamification supports deeper learning needs such as autonomy, mastery, and purpose. When students feel ownership of their progress, when they receive continuous feedback and see their achievements build over time, and in level up systems or ongoing quests, they remain engaged beyond novelty phase. For example, in a STEM context, students might advance from apprentice engineers to master innovators through progressively complex challenges, which fosters sustained curiosity and a sense of growth. However, sustaining motivation isn't just about design, it's about equitable access. Schools must ensure that gamified learning opportunities are not limited to well-resourced classrooms. Equitable implementation means bridging the digital divide through a low-tech or blended gamification strategies like printed challenge cards, offline leaderboards, or classroom missions that don't depend solely on devices or connectivity. And one more example is training teachers to integrate gamification meaningfully, aligning it with learning objectives rather than treating it as an add-on, and designing culturally responsive content so students see their own experiences reflected in gamified learning scenario. In short, gamification can indeed nurture long-term equitable motivation if it revolves or evolves from being motivational gimmick into a pedagogical framework that values growth, inclusion, and sustainable engagement. It's about making learning feel like an ongoing adventure on in which every student, regardless of background, can participate and progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zaffar. And I just wanted to ask all three of you a question. I want to move on to our next panel, but if you can just answer one sentence. What are each of you looking forward? What is the most exciting thing for you when it comes to EdTech in the next 10 years? Dr. Simone, you can go ahead.
You refer to the tech
Yeah.
when it comes to artificial intelligence, for example, in the context of education in the next 10 years, you mean?
Thank you.
What I'm looking for that is more exciting is when we will have blended education system for which AI and XR maybe will be integrated in the classroom. That is something we are discussing quite a lot, but it still has to be developed in a way that is like implemented worldwide. And also how this could like destroy barriers of education, for example. How can we use this technology actually to bring education to places in which unfortunately they are not reached by educators, by materials right now, because this technology may really help us to make education process more equal and more fair across the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simone. Balqees, I would love to hear your answer as well.
So in a short answer, I would say that it's humans in the loop. That means it's a personalized learning that support teachers instead of replacing them. That is the big promise for me that AI can bring to any classroom.
Thank you so much. Dr. Zaffar?
Yes, while educational technology has a tremendous potential, it also carries a risk of deepening existing inequities if access and capacity are not addressed systematically. In my view, ensuring equity and access in EdTech requires three-pronged, we can say threefold path. First is we have to build foundational structure. For that, government and institutions must prioritize digital infrastructure as a public good, just like electricity or water. That means expanding internet connectivity in rural areas and undervested areas, providing affordable digital devices and ensuring regular maintenance and support. Number second is teacher capacity building. Technology is not as effective as teachers are using it. Continuous teacher professional development must focus not only on technical skills, but on digital pedagogy. That means how to integrate technology meaningfully into instructions. Models like TPAC framework, wherein TPAC means technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge, can guide this integration, ensuring technology enhances rather than replaces sound teaching practices. Moreover, and the last one is the inclusive and contextual design. For that, we must promote low-cost, offline capable, and multilingual learning platforms that can function even in resource-constrained settings. Tools like Khan Academy, Light, or Diksha in India are great examples, providing equitable access to high-quality content without requiring continuous internet connectivity. Ultimately, equity in EdTech is not just about devices or bandwidth, it is about empowerment. When we equip teachers, design inclusive tools, and ensure reliable access, technology becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zaffar. And now we're going to be moving on to our next panel, which is called The Human Connection, Redefining the Teacher-Student Relationship. Because as all these new tools are happening, and also with these questions about interdisciplinary learning and the job market and how to tailor education to an uncertain world, we still need to talk about the human connection between students and teachers, because this is something that technology cannot really capture, right? So we already touched a little bit on this in the first panel, But in this panel, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. Dr. Royce, you're going to be on this panel as well as Dr. Venkat and Dr. Sheila. Thank you. These are all authors who contributed in some way or another to talking about this subject, redefining student-teacher partnership. I'd like to start with you, Dr. Venkat. Dr. Venkat wrote a book, contributed a book really about who is the future student, especially in a STEM context and education. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Venkat, what changes do you think that future STEM students expect from their learning experience? And how can teachers respond to those expectations?
First of all, my dear people, I'm really happy to be here with all of you. Thanks a lot, Nora, for the question. The set of answers that I had in my mind to discuss for this particular question, or I was thinking of, perhaps it would be redundant if I mention them again, but something quite essential, which I think we should all think of focusing is how are we enabling the students to use what they are learning, especially in STEM, as a tool for creating a social change? This is currently what is lacking, at least in quite a lot of European countries. And this is something that we are trying to implement. And there is a sort of a growing awareness in this particular area. For example, when I was looking at engineering and looking at engineering education overall, I was able to see that the curriculum currently presents quite a lot of equations. And maybe rather than talking about the theory, I'd just say what a few of the academics mentioned. They mentioned that, Venkat, no, the student should be learning more equations, more modeling, more algorithm, all these things about intercultural understanding, ethical judgment, emotional intelligence. They are all soft skills that the students can develop later on. This is engineering education. They learn hardcore structures, etc. It really takes away the essence of why they are learning what they are learning, and also how they can use what they are learning in creating a meaningful change. I think this is something that I think the even the current learners are starting to request and have an understanding, or at least have an awareness that it is lacking in the curriculum. And to address this, it requires a change in mindset from the academics overall. And I think that has also been explored to quite a lot of extent by the other speakers. So I'll just stop there and give way to my peers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Venkat. I had a question also for Dr. Royce, who also spoke about teachers in this book. I wanted to ask you if teachers are becoming facilitators of experiences rather than just delivering content, what do you think that teacher training should prioritize in terms of competencies we need to keep in mind for teachers? This is a very interesting question to me because we also just wrapped up a working paper here at RCEP about teacher competency. So I'm very excited to hear your answers. I know that the researchers who worked on this paper are also here in the audience with us today, and I'm sure they'd love to hear what you say.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you everyone for participating. Good afternoon. I think one of the first things that need to be considered in terms of the competencies is actually part of what Dr. Moravec said earlier about the need to redesign things. I think right now in teacher education, and I've worked in multiple different countries, but largely in the US, obviously, it's a repetitive cycle. The students who do well in school, like school, often want to become teachers. That may be a generalization, but that's largely what you hear when you talk to students. And what worked for them is what they're now trained to do to think it will work for the future. And I think we have to start to really look at how do we break that cycle of that knowledge generation, that traditional content, that traditional approach of teaching with whatever strategies that they're doing, and really start to focus on how do they become facilitators of that co-creation of knowledge. So I think one of the competencies that we have to focus on is not just what the classroom looks like, but how are the students interacting with the classroom? I think they need to really start to focus on some of the competencies around designing environments where the students are asking the questions and the teachers are starting to help to facilitate the learning process around that. Many years ago, decades ago, we had problem-based learning, ill-defined problems, and we would have academies where the entire thing was integrated, similar to what we heard about Finland with the phenomenal-based approach. So I think with the competencies, the first competency we have to focus on is how do we break the cycle and then develop that environment where the teachers are supporting the student questions. I think the students end up asking many questions that are often overlooked because it might not be that 45-minute class period where we're talking about it. And then it kind of gets pushed to the side. I think the second competency that we need to work on with pre-service teachers largely focuses around the idea of 3 R's. How do we develop respect for all students, all cultures, all learning? Because I think in some places, largely where I'm at also in the US, we have a very traditional approach of what learning looks like. And we know that from cultural explorations across countries that we have a lot of different opportunities to develop that respect and learn from each other. I think we also have to look at relevance with that. And with relevance, I mean, what is the relevance of what they're learning? If we're just simply going through the curriculum because it's in the textbook or it's in a pacing guide, then why is that relevant now? And why isn't it something that could be integrated with something later? And I also think we have to think about responsiveness. How are we responding to the students? But also how are we responding to the parents? How are we responding to the community needs? How are we responding to the workforce needs? Having some panels around that may look different in different areas within a particular state, a particular country, globally. I think the last set of competencies that really need to be taught to pre-service teachers and how we prepare them to interact in the classroom focuses around everything from AI literacy, and we've heard much about that already today from several of the speakers, to media literacy. How are we making informed decisions about what information is shared from who? How are we interpreting that? All the way down to the 21st century skills that we talk about, which we're now a quarter of the way through, and we're still talking about how do we implement them. So how do we start to actually implement those kind of literacies as well? And I think those areas, the need to be responsive to the curriculum, but also the main one is to break that cycle of to teach the way we were taught and to prepare students in the way we were taught for the future that isn't even our current future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Royce. What an insightful and thoughtful answer.
Thank you.
I want to move on to Dr. Sheila and just ask you a quick question before we open up this session to audience questions. So please, for the audience, if you do have a question, please submit it in the Q&A. And if it's directed at a specific speaker, please do mention the speaker's name. Dr. Sheila, she contributed a chapter in the book about grading and assessment and evaluation and how that's going to change in the future. More and more, we're seeing that students are actually able to have more personalized evaluations of their work. It's not a one size fits all anymore. So Dr. Sheila, I really wanted to ask you, in light of these new ways of evaluating students and grading them, what do you think is the role of the teacher-student connection? And how can this be enhanced, like using these new methods of grading and evaluation?
Right. Thank you for asking, Ms. Nora. Yeah. So to answer this question, I'd just like to say that the etymology of the word assessment means to sit beside and to evaluate. I let that sink in, to sit beside and evaluate. When was the last time we did that in our today's classrooms with 25 to 30 students? I don't recall, because of the amount of students we have, the amount of grading we have, it's very difficult to obviously achieve this. So we can change the situation now with AI. So for instance, we can use AI-driven instant feedback to help teachers and free teachers from repetitive tasks. So this will allow us to save time and energy so that we can concentrate on more higher level cognitive tasks with our students. Secondly, we can use AI agents as well to automate grading of some assessment tasks and assessment scheduling and record keeping of, and that reduces administrative burdens on us. You also ask about new assessment models that we could use with our students. So this is very important because nowadays we have institutions who have banned AI completely, some allowing it a little bit in research, but not allowing it in writing, some going back to even pen and paper exams. So what do we do in our situation? What do I recommend? So I would suggest, and I would recommend that we use AI evaluators, again, for low-level cognitive tasks. But I'm a strong advocate for project-based and e-portfolio assessments. And this obviously, the reason behind is because it captures the entire learning journey of our students, from the processes, the thinking, the performance, the reflection that goes on. And it shows, the growth over time. So the problem we're having nowadays with institutions adopting future assessments is that they have to train their faculty in terms of AI literacy, in AI assessment literacy. For instance, we need teachers to know about the validity, reliability, fairness, justice, bias, and washback of the assessment system that they intend to apply, or they're applying to our students. And I would also suggest that, especially people in the global South and in the Gulf, to stop adopting other people's centric assessment or Western-centric assessments that do not necessarily align to our cultural and educational backgrounds. We should learn to build our own. And this is the time now. We have AI helping us to do that. So I hope that RCEP, UNESCO, will also help in that. And as a word of caution, as an educator, but first and foremost as a parent, we use AI tools. We should be using AI tools. However, with our children and adolescents, we need to have strict regulations. We should have laws to protect young and adolescent learners from companies who may exploit them for profits, even in educational settings. And we have seen this happening already. We should keep humans in the loop. It's not an option, it's mandatory, right? So without safeguards, the future generations, which is approximately 30% of the world population, which is now under 18 years old, they may suffer as a result of our action, right? So thank you very much for that, Nora.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sheila. And I think this wraps up our second panel. Right now, I have some more general questions from the audience. These are not directed at any particular speaker, but if you feel that if you want to answer this question, please raise your hand and I'll call upon you to answer this question. So one of the questions that we have, and I've received several questions around this theme that I'm kind of amalgamating together. So what's one thing that schools and universities can implement right away to strengthen the teacher-student partnership? Something that we can do right away, right now, in the wake of all these technological changes. Something that's maybe a low-hanging fruit. Would any of you like to answer this question? Okay, I'm gonna move on to.
I can actually
Yeah.
start, and then our colleagues can
Sure.
join in with their
Please, yeah.
points.
We have some
The
10 minutes left in the session, so yeah, we can use that for some questions. Go ahead, Dr. Venkat.
Thanks a lot, Nora. I'll just start with a couple of points, and then, of course, our colleagues can join in with the other thoughts that they are having. In terms of the easy to the low-hanging fruits, or something that the schools can easily do, is to start partnering with the students and start asking them to go identify some of the problems that really matter to them. That is very simple. Just ask them to, if there's a problem in their community, or if there is a problem that they see, homelessness, it could be poverty, conflict. So whatever conflict or whatever issue that they identify, and then the teachers can show how what they are learning can be used as a tool to solve them, so that it gives what they are learning a huge context, and it empowers them. What they are learning empowers them to be able to be agents of change, even at a small level in their community. That is an easy thing to do. It does not require technology, it does not require a huge change in the curriculum, etc. So perhaps this is one point that I could think of. Of course, our colleagues can join in and they can contribute their points.
Thank you so much. I also have another question from the audience. Someone asked, what do you think about providing an interactive curriculum based on artificial intelligence for specifically for autistic students who tend to not really work with papers and pen? And the person asking this is asking as a teacher and also to a parent of an autistic student. So this is an interesting question. I think like we didn't touch much on the book, but in the book, but if someone would like to contribute to this answer or has some experience with autistic students and how these tools are kind of shaping their experience of education, I would love to hear from you.
Guys, I'll just jump in here. I don't have any particular experience with autistic students, but I do have a lot of experience working with people in alternative education areas, as well as in entire communities and networks, ranging from networks of homeschoolers to networks of democratic schools, etc. And these are many of them have been placed into to support really diverse learning needs. And the one thing that I gotta say is that if we have a technological solution that enables a student to learn their own way, their very own best way, and enables them to produce their very best outcomes, absolutely go for it. And that can be an AI-based tool. It could be it could be learning abroad. It could be engaging in more hands-on type experiences. But I think the important thing is that when we're looking at the use of these tools, that we need to think of how we could use them to enable greater learning, rather than controlling the same experience. So when working with learners with diverse needs, it's really meeting them where they are on that learning pathway and providing the best supports that we can, AI or not.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean. I think the last question we're going to be addressing for this session is obviously during this session, we talked so much about technological innovation in the classroom. But one question that's very important, and actually I'm very interested in it too, and we're working on a project about this topic in RCEP, is how do we balance all these technological innovations with digital fatigue? I would love if one of you can contribute to this question. Yes, please, Dr. Royce.
So I think digital fatigue, cognitive dissonance, all of those things, I think that goes back to the key question that Meryl asked at first. What is the purpose of instruction? And the technology should be used to then drive the instruction. It shouldn't be the technology is the instruction around which we design our lessons.
Mhm.
So I think we have to be critical consumers of when and how we're using AI, and how we're using gamification. So that initial concept is, what is the learning? And that might be the entire student-based concern over a local thing that they're learning, but some of it might be out talking to community members, which doesn't require the use of technology at first. So I think we have to really consider what the purpose is and then how any of our technologies we use supports that purpose.
Thank you so much. I think this concludes our session today. Thank you everyone for being with us, and we're gonna send an email to all attendees with the link to the book so that you can check it out now that you have an idea of what it's about. And also please keep an eye on our LinkedIn, our Instagram, our website. The book is going to be in all these places. It's already on our website, so if you go to our website, you go to Knowledge Corner or ركن المعرفة بالعربي, you can find it's there. It's called Edited Volume, and it's called Futuristic Insights on Education Components. We had all these lovely writers contribute a chapter, and thank you so much to everyone for attending, and a special thank you for Dr. John Moravec. I know you had to wake up very early to come to this session. And thank you to all the writers. This has really been a labor of love for me and my first major project here in RCEP. And working with all of you has been very easy, and I learned so much from you. And I hope that you also learned a lot from us. So thank you very much. And we will send a link to this book to everyone who participated, and see you in our next seminar.
Thank you very much,
Thanks a lot,
Nora.
Nora.
It was a
Take
pleasure
care.
to work with you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. It was a learning curve for me to, in fact, I have learned a lot from this group. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Bye.